recognition that the economy often evolves in unexpected ways. We will need to be nimble in responding to incoming data and the evolving outlook. And we will strive to avoid adding uncertainty to what is already an extraordinarily challenging and uncertain moment. We are attentive to the risks of potential further upward pressure on inflation and inflation expectations. The committee is determined to take the measures necessary to restore price stability. The American economy is very strong and well positioned to handle tighter monetary policy. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Let's go to Gina at the New York Times.
Hi, Chair Powell. Thank you so much for taking our question. I wonder if you could detail your thinking a little bit about how you're considering the risks of going too fast and potentially tipping the economy into recession, and how you're weighing those risks against the possibility of going too slowly, allowing inflation to become embedded and kind of getting behind the curve.
So, I guess I would start by saying that, in my view, the probability of a recession within the next year is not particularly elevated. And why do I say that? Aggregate demand is currently strong, and most forecasters expect it to remain so. If you look at the labor market, also very strong. Conditions are tight, and payroll job growth is continuing at very high levels. Household and business balance sheets are strong. And so all signs are that this is a strong economy, indeed, one that will be able to flourish, not to say withstand, but certainly flourish as well in the face of less accommodative monetary policy. So I guess that's how I would say I'm looking at that. Of course, the objective is to achieve price stability while also sustaining a strong labor market, and that is our overall objective, but we do feel the economy is very strong and well positioned to withstand tighter monetary policy.
Thank you. Let's go to Howard at Reuters.
Hi, Chair Powell. I was wondering, in the steps you have quite a markdown to GDP from 4 to 2.8%. I'm wondering how much of that do you feel is a result of the Fed's stiffer than expected action here? You talk about monetary policy operating with a lag, but is this going to bite quicker than expected?
I don't think that's a big piece of it, actually. I think some of that is just an early assessment of the effects of spillovers from the war in Eastern Europe, which will hit our economy through a number of channels, highly uncertain, but you're looking at higher oil prices, higher commodity prices. It'll be so that we think that will weigh on GP to some extent. So that's part of what moved those assessments down. I think generally monetary policy works with a lag, so some of that would also be in there. But remember as well that 2.8% is still very strong growth. We think that the potential growth rate of the economy is somewhere around 1.75%. 2.8% is strong economic growth. It would have been one of the strongest years, in fact, of the last expansion. So while it's lower than last year's 5.8%, it's still quite strong growth. So I would say it's quite a strong forecast.
So in that context, what would trigger you to go faster or slower on the rate hikes? Ongoing increases doesn't really tell us whether this is going to come in bigger chunks or evenly paced through the year.
And so the way we're thinking about this is that every meeting is a live meeting, and we're going to be looking at evolving conditions. And if we do conclude that it would be appropriate to move more quickly to remove accommodation, then we'll do so. I can't be perfectly specific about it, but that's certainly a possibility as we go through the year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Rachel at the Washington Post.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Chair Powell, for taking our questions. I'm curious if you can be specific on when you expect to see inflation will start to come down, especially with the combination of rates going up, fiscal aid dissipating from the economy, and supply chains getting better. And if you don't start to see that, how will you signal it? What will you be looking for, and what will you be looking for over the course of the year? Thank you.
So I guess I would say that before the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, so let's go back to that. I said that the expectation was that inflation would peak sometime in the first quarter, maybe the end of the first quarter of this year, and then maybe stay at that level or a little bit lower, and then start to come down in the back half of the year. So now we're already seeing a little bit of short-term upward pressure in inflation due to higher oil prices, not natural gas a little bit, but not so much for us since we have our own natural gas supply, other commodities prices. The other thing is that you're seeing supply chain issues around shipping and around, lots of countries and companies and people not wanting to touch Russian goods. So that's going to be more tangled supply chains. So that could actually push out the relief we were expecting on supply chains generally. So I guess I would say that the expectation is still that inflation will begin to come down in the second half of the year. But if you look at where I read the SEP headline median, we still expect inflation to be high this year, lower than last year. And then we expect, though, particularly with the effects of the war, but also the data we've seen so far this year, we expect inflation to remain high through the middle of the year, begin to come down, and then come down more sharply next year.
Let's go to Nick at the Wall Street Journal.
Nick Timmeros of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, over the last 6 months, the Fed has shifted its policy stance quite a bit. 6 months ago, you were still buying assets. Most officials weren't projecting any interest rate increases this year. And yet, despite the shift over the last 6 months, real rates are as negative today as they were then. So how concerned are you that further inflation surprises will offset the effects of recent policy firming by leading real rates to stay at levels that do not actually provide much restraint to the economy? Thanks.
So that's one of many ways of capturing the situation, which is that the committee really does understand that the time for rate increases and for shrinking the balance sheet has come.
يعني أنا مش شايف في كلام باول لغاية دلوقتي يعني أي نية في زيادة الفايدة مرة تانية أو مرات تانية خلال السنة دي يعني. فتهيألي يعني الوضع هيبقى غير واضح لغاية ما يعقد مؤتمر تاني ويتقال فيه كلام جديد. زي ما انتوا شايفين كده الذهب بيطلع. إذن الكلام اللي بيقوله باول لغاية دلوقتي ما هوش سلبي وفي نفس الوقت ما هوش إيجابي قوي يعني. هو برضو الذهب بيطلع بس مش بقوة يعني. هنشوف